jotting it down. I'm like, let me look at your paper at lunch class.
Bro, this will be the time I would be cooking my plays, but Mr. Hollywood had to change the time up for 3 hours today.
Yeah, well, Sporting snuck into the playoffs. They snuck in through the back door, which is how your plays usually end up working out. But yes, indeed, I'm gonna be in Children's Mercy Park a little bit later tonight for the Western Conference wild card match between Sporting and San Jose. Are you a soccer guy at all?
Not really. I'm a casual. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm a casual soccer guy, but you know, I'm always rooting for the hometown, so I'm gonna watch now because Kansas City's in the playoffs.
No, you're
Let's
not.
go.
Do you even have MLS season pass?
No, but I'm gonna stream it.
You gonna do like you gonna do the illegal copy? You got like a little website that can link you to anything.
I ain't giving out my connects, man. We'll keep that under wraps.
Well, let's get into it, man. Chiefs Coast to Coast on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, episode 61. Mark Gunnels is a Jayhawk. This is for our audio audience. Mark Gunnels is a Jayhawk for Halloween. That's the funniest costume that he could think of, especially an Adidas Jayhawk. That's you bound to break some rules wearing that costume. And I'm donned out here in my Tiger costume. Boys 7-1. Going into the bye week, big game against Georgia after, and it's a big day around the Show Me State potentially with Ryan Wingo possibly committing to Mizzou. So I got my costume here ahead of Halloween as we recap another Chiefs win inside the division over the rival Chargers, and then we'll look ahead to Kansas City's second and final matchup against the Denver Broncos this upcoming Sunday. Can't do that without you, the fam, the listeners, the audience. Arrowhead Pride audience. 816-514-1267 is our voicemail line. We'll play a little voicemail we got later in the show here. You can always chime in wherever you're tapped in, whether it's on X, got it right, or YouTube, Facebook, wherever y'all rocking with Chiefs Coast to Coast. Let us know what you're feeling as we get ready for another game here in the Kingdom. Are you dressing up for Halloween, Mark Gunnels?
I'm always a last minute guy, so
that doesn't surprise. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I just caught myself there, didn't I? But nah, I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, I might just because Maverick is, I got to show him that, be part of the team, if you will.
Yeah, do like the family the family costumes. I think are honestly usually the coolest ones. I mean, like you do the Proud Family, or people come up with different ones. I know Travis and Taylor is going to be a very popular one this year. I can't wait to see what you and Mav pop out as. Maybe something Chiefs related here, because this is our last episode before the big day.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Do you have a favorite Halloween candy before we get started?
I'm not. So I've eliminated sweets from my diet. But I can give you what I used to like.
Flat tummy Mark over here. He doesn't eat candy anymore.
I used to be a big Jolly Rancher guy.
Okay, well, solid.
Yeah. And if I'm going like some chocolate, like the milk chocolate, like the Hershey's, Snickers, Reese's, the type of guy. I've never what's that one candy people? It's always a big debate on if it's good or not.
Candy corn.
Yeah, candy corn. I was never a candy corn guy.
I don't like candy corn either.
Candy
corn is gross to me.
Yeah.
All right.
What about you? What's your favorites?
I like Kit Kat. I like Hershey's. I'm kind of like you. I don't really love sweets. I do like Sour Patch Kids or like Skittles or stuff like that. So
shout out to Starburst too.
End of the night, when you get your loot for the day, that's when you start to make trades. That was my amateur GM days. I'll trade a Kit Kat for like a Starburst. Make little deals and whatnot. Yeah.
I can see you politicking in the hallways in school.
Let's get to it. Let's Chiefs recap.
Mahomes avoids, throws. He's a magician.
Chiefs recap.
Another Chiefs win, make that 6 in a row, 31-17 this time over the Los Angeles Chargers. The first note I have on this game is very simple. Big days for Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes and tight end Travis Kelce. Mahomes goes 32 of 42 for 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception for 129.5. Rating on the afternoon, Travis Kelce, my goodness, it's just I outwardly laughed at one point in the press box because he was just so open at points in the first half. He finishes with 12 catches on 13 targets, 179 total yards, and a touchdown, along on the day being for 53. I think maybe a younger Kelce gets in there. You know what I mean? Like, he had room, green grass. There was one man to beat, and he got him there. That was the one. I mean, that was the one, I guess, hiccup on a otherwise perfect day for these two, and it just. There were so many snarky comments on X during this game, and one of them was like, did the Chargers not even game plan for 87? Did they forget that 87 was on the roster? Because he was the straw that was stirring the drink for KC early and often throughout this one, Mark.
Aaron, you're missing the point here. It was the Swifty effect, man. I know you saw that graphic of when she's in attendance versus when she's not in attendance. That is what it is. She gave him the extra power. No, but I mean, it's one of those things, right, where we always wonder, how does Kelce always get so open? Especially now post Tyreek, right? You don't have another guy, quote unquote, that team's fear on the outside. So you would think it's just so easy just to double team him, triple team him, right? And just play the other guys one-on-one. But for some reason, somehow, this guy just continues to be open time and time again. I think a lot of it has to do with him being a quarterback in high school. He understands angles and soft spots. Him and Mahomes just have this, their chemistry is unmatched. I mean, it really is one of the best quarterback tight end duos we've ever seen before, man. You're talking about Tom Brady, Gronk, John Elway, and Shannon Sharp. It's right there in the mix, man. It's really special to see week in and week out. And then let's show some love to Rashee Rice, man. You know, this guy continues to grow every single week. His yak ability is amazing. I mean, he had a little slant near the goal line and took it all the way up almost near midfield. I mean, the guy has a quick burst. Looks like that drop issue is kind of erased at this point now, because I think he goes so fast after the catch. He's thinking about that next move, but I think he's reeled that in now. And you see a Chiefs offense that's looking like it's getting back to form. I mean, you could argue that's probably the most complete game they've played this year, minus the Bears, right? We're not really counting that one. But against a real NFL team, I think this is probably their most complete game.
A real NFL team is insane.
The Bears are not a real. I'm sorry to all my Chicago friends out there.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway from the performance, is like, you're starting to see what the offense looks like against legitimate competition. I won't say a real NFL team, but like the Chargers on paper, and really not even just on paper, kind of heading into this matchup, had everything to play for. Division game. We were both saying going into this that 3-3 looks a lot different than 2-4, and Justin Herbert and the offense had started to figure some things out. And there was a moment there where, after the long Josh Kelly touchdown, that you really thought that this was going to be it's not just after the long Josh Kelly touchdown. Gerald Everett scores 7. He gets a 7-yard touchdown catch from Herbert at 7:06 in the second quarter. It's 17-all, and you're like, all right, well, the offense is going to have to match Justin Herbert. This is going to have to be back and forth.
Yeah.
How is KC's offense, which really has been, it's weird because when we say they've been spotty or they've been streaky, they were still top 10 in offensive DVOA. This is still a unit that was racking up a lot of points and a lot of yardage, but we were holding them to their standard, right, Mark? And when we hear they want points on every drive and they go 1 for 5 in the red zone against Denver, we start to say, what's going on? The first half of this one, yes, it was a lot of Kelce to Mahomes or Mahomes to Kelce. It felt like a more balanced attack. Mahomes had spread it around on the first drive to, I believe, 7 different receivers. The penalties are the one thing that I probably still worry about long term. 6 for 43 in this game, which was down from some of their previous performances. The timing of them hurts. The timing of them is something that worries about me going forward when you're playing against top flight offenses that can go point for point with you. But overall, this is a passing grade for KC against a good team.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about it last week heading into this matchup. You're playing a very desperate Chargers team, right? They didn't want to fall to 2-4. They just came off a heartbreaking loss Monday night against the Cowboys. And we know that Brandon Staley is super aggressive. I thought there was a couple of spots, actually. I was surprised he didn't go for it on 4th down. It's just really weird that, you think you have identity there, but then one week he gets super conservative all of a sudden. It's like, oh, okay. You're not this ultra aggressive Madden guy that I thought you were the previous week. So that definitely threw me off a little bit. And Justin Herbert dealing with the finger hand situation doesn't help at all. And the fact they didn't have Mike Williams, right? I think that's a big thing to mention because he's been known as like the quote unquote Chiefs killer, right? He's been a guy that it seems like every game against the Chiefs, he turns into Megatron or Terrell Owens or something. So them not having him definitely hurts. Quentin Johnson hasn't reached the level that they're looking for at this point, their first round pick receiver. And then Keenan Allen, like I said last week, he's going to go under his receiving yards. That's what the Chiefs defense does. They take away your main weapon. And outside of that, they didn't really have anybody else to really put a threat to this defense. I mean, Austin Eckler is a second game back. I think he's still getting the flow of things there. But the first half, it looked like it was going to be a shootout, right? Like it was 17-17. Both teams are fine up and down the field, but second half, they got shut out.
I'm kind of surprised that Brandon Staley is still the head coach there.
I don't think they'll do it. They won't do it in season, though. I don't see the Chargers as one of those franchises.
It just felt like after the playoff game, even last year, like it was going to take a lot to kind of re-inspire and re-energize and kind of get the faith back. And now you're 2-4, and they're 2-4 in third place in the division. I think the Raiders are second, right? Like, so they're looking up at 2 teams 7 weeks in. Are they a wild card team this year, in your opinion?
No, I don't think they are. I think the wild cards, I think you definitely get one from the AFC East, whether it's the Bills or Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I think you probably get 3 teams out of the North, right? The winner, which may be the Ravens as of right now, and then maybe the Bengals and Browns or the Steelers. Like, all those teams like are 500 or better. So I think all your wild cards are coming from the North and the East.
Sticking with our Chiefs-Chargers recap, we had 2 debuts in the game. For Mecole Hardman, it wasn't necessarily a Chiefs debut. How about a Chiefs debut in 2023? Has an impact on special teams with a big 50-yard punt return to kind of seal it, help KC score again late in the game and put it away. I had a chance to catch up with him on the field after and talked about just his first game back in the kingdom.
50 yards on that punt return, helped kind of seal and put this one away in the second half. What'd you see on that play?
Man, all I know is Toad was on my ass because I let the other one go. So I knew I had to make up for it, man. He gave me a good punt, man, and I just, seen green grass and just hit it.
I know you were here before, but coming back into the group now, coming from a different locker room, coming back here, what makes this place so special here in Kansas City, what the Nucleus has here?
Man, just everybody, man, the whole team, the coaching staff, everybody got one goal, man, everybody on the same page, and when everybody just gel together, everybody vibe very well, man, so I love to be a part of it. I'm glad I'm back, man, and, they welcome me back with open arms, and now it's just time for me, week in, week out, just to get better.
That 12 just doesn't look the same. Give my man 17 back, man. We
Richie
don't like
James has it.
We don't like 12, bro. I'm not a 12 fan.
I wanted him to go get 0. I feel like 0 would have been cool.
I think
that looks like somebody that's fast is supposed to wear 0.
No
like
reporting
12,
here, but I think
KC
has like a vendetta against 0. I feel like 0 guys have asked for it and been told no. That's my guess.
Yeah, we're so traditional. We can't even get an alternate jersey. They only just sell them at Walmart. You get the black or the yellow Chiefs jersey. We just got to wear the red or the white every single week because we're just so traditional.
Think Through Tactical is rocking with us on YouTube. Says, best show on the Arrowhead Pride channel. My guys, what's good? Sounds like they're in favor of Agent 0 as well. Appreciate the love on the chat. episode 61 here on Chiefs Coast to Coast. So we're talking Mecole Hardman and his return. Look, I don't think it was a perfect debut for Mecole, and I talked about this a little bit on 610 yesterday with Carrington Harrison. Mecole is a little bit of a Band-Aid for what's going on with the Chiefs wide receiver room right now, and I think it helps when you get the reports out of practice on Wednesday that Justin Watson is back after many expected him to miss a couple weeks. He misses just that one game and is probably going to be a limited participant on Thursday. So, look, Mecole is not a completely different player also than what you saw last time he was in a Chiefs uniform. I'm thinking about the pick that he was targeted on where Mahomes kind of tries to go deep there, and maybe we could talk about his deep ball problems a little bit later in the show. He had a specific role or has a specific role on this team now, and it played it well in his first game, specific to Mecole Hardman, Mark.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you lose a player, he's gone for a little bit, and then you kind of forget what he actually is. You start thinking he's better than what he really was during his time on your team just because he's not there anymore. And I think you got a lot of that. But I'm okay with Mecole Hardman being the same Mecole Hardman that he was in Kansas City the first time. I'm fine with that because he's still your fastest receiver on the roster. And he's, like I said before, he offers that cheat code part to your offense where if things are kind of stifled and kind of stagnant, you can do a quick little jet sweep. He could take it 50 yards any given play. And that can jumpstart your offense. So I think once he gets incorporated more, you'll start seeing more of that stuff being brought back to the offense. I like him on the punt return game. Brings some juice that you didn't have there before. Washington was fine, but Mecole is one of those guys that can take it to the house any given time. And like I said, it's just the jump start's a cheat code when your offense isn't playing that well. You can flip the field position. Now you're starting at the opposing team's 40 versus your own 30 or whatever it is. Things like that matter. And it's just big momentum plays. So I'm happy for him just being what he is. I'm not asking him to be a route technician or anything like that, or the next Tyreek Hill. I just want him to be the same Mecole Hardman that he was before. I think that's what this offense needs.
Well, it was a Chiefs debut for Charles Omenihu after the 6-game suspension. He comes back, plays his first game in the win over the Chargers, and makes a big impact, Mark. It was a sack for Omenihu, 2 total tackles, 2 quarterback hits, plus the pass deflected that leads to the interception and a tackle for loss. I thought his sound after the game was really revealing because this is a guy that had been around. I mean, he was in the facility and we had seen him around, but never really got an opportunity to talk to him. Didn't really talk in the lead up to this game as well, but took the podium after having this big game in the win and talked about how hard it was for him to spend the time away. And look, I understand what he was suspended for, and I'm not taking away from that or making any light of that situation. But in the football side of things, he was very reflective in the time away and how the organization kind of helped support him through this uncertainty, changing teams, joining a team that has a high standard of winning, and then helping them win in their first game and getting a sack in that game. I think he called the sack one of the biggest moments of his career up to that point. He's going to be a big part of what they like to do defensively going forward, Mark. And if you were, as you had been on this platform, talking all off season, talking all of the first 6 games about, hey, this defense is getting a guy back who's going to be a difference maker, we saw that right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about a guy that I thought before the suspension could be second on this team in sacks behind Chris Jones. I mean, it's still actually not out of the realm of possibility. Right now, he has 1 sack. The second leader is Mike Dana with 4.5. So, I mean, the gap isn't that huge to where he could still accomplish that feat. But despite that, I mean, you're talking about a debut. You probably couldn't ask for a better one, right? You get a sack, you get a tackle for a loss, and you get the pass deflection that led to an interception. I mean, I've said it before. This is a guy that kind of got buried in a sense in San Francisco because they have one of the deepest defensive lines in the league. He was a rotational piece there. He had 5.5 sacks there last year, I believe. He's only 26 years old. So this is kind of right in the smack of your prime, right? Especially for a defensive lineman. 26 to about 30-ish is when you expect to have the best years of your your career. So I think we got him at a really good time. You're right next to Chris Jones, who I think is the best D tackle in the league right now. I don't think there's much argument there. Sorry, Aaron Donald backers. But yeah, Charles Omenihu, he's in a great spot. This defense was already top 5 without him. And now you add a guy who I think is going to be your second most impactful defensive lineman.
Let's head into our grab bag now as we're moving mightily along here on Chiefs Coast to Coast. Mark Gunnels, Aaron Ladd, Steven Serta behind the board. Let's talk Chiefs wideout Justin Ross. And I'm reading an article off KSHB 41 online. Of course, there's a lot more information and out now than what was happening earlier this week. Kind of glad we had a little bit of time to wait and let the situation develop. This is from Todd Palmer and the KSHB 41 news staff. Chiefs wide receiver Justin Ross arrested Monday afternoon in Shawnee, arrested for alleged criminal damage of greater than $1,000 but less than $25,000. Chiefs confirmed that they were aware. He practiced at the facility on Wednesday. Andy Reid said they're monitoring the situation. We'll actually hear from him and quarterback Patrick Mahomes before going any further on this Justin Ross story.
Yeah, all the situations are different. So, obviously the law enforcement part of it, you listen to what the real details of what went on, and then we keep open communication, Brett, myself, and our people that deal with the law enforcement. So, and then we make the final decision from there.
And we love Justin. I don't know too many of the details as far as that goes, but in this locker room, it's a brotherhood, so we just try to pick each other up as much as possible.
My thoughts on this are very simple, Mark. It's a bummer. I don't think any man should hit a woman. I think that we should wait for all the information to come out, and once we get more information, we can make a further, more educated talk and conversation from there. But as of what we know right now, he's practicing for Kansas City and looks on track to play on Sunday.
Yeah. Just gonna let the legal process play out here. I don't want to speak too much on it until all the facts come out, but definitely unfortunate situation to say the least, though, just all the way around.
I agree. And I think CDOT kind of touched on this a little, so I'll echo his thing briefly before we move on. This kid's overcome so much adversity to get to this point. To kind of see something like this happen from any side, from any angle, I'm not rooting for anyone's demise, and I just want everyone involved to learn. And hopefully we can take something from this and be better going forward. I don't know. The chat is chiming in now, and he says that wants to know what his likelihood of staying on the team is. I don't know. He's not as big of a piece as others. I could see Kansas City cutting bait with him and it being another story we talk about on the next podcast and we move on. It's unfortunate this whole thing happened, and it stinks, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's never good, obviously, but when you're talking about his placement on the roster, you're talking about a guy that we were even wondering, would he even make the team of a few months ago, right? So it's a very, very short leash when it comes to these type of things. You had the Tyreek situation a few years ago, Willie Gay last year, but those are guys that are starters. Like, those guys are getting quality majority of the snaps. So, like I said, we'll just let this situation play out. He was at practice on Wednesday, and we'll go from there.
I want to stick with some housekeeping notes. How about some injury updates for Kansas City? They did practice on Wednesday, which is the day we recorded this, October 25th. Andy Reid updated the status on Nick Bolton. The linebacker sustained a wrist injury in the win over the Chargers, was in a lot of pain, and I posted on X that I was bummed for Bolton, because I am, man. This is not a guy who had been injury prone in the past, missed a couple games earlier this year, I believe, with a low ankle sprain or ankle sprain. I won't say low, just ankle sprain. Now, Andy Reid says he had surgery in Los Angeles on Tuesday and is expected to return to Kansas City on Wednesday. I remember the report from Tom Pelissero, I believe, was up to 2 months, which is a large portion of the schedule for Kansas City. We know Drew Tranquill stepped in Nick Bolton's absence earlier this season and now is expected to do the same as Bolton recovers from a midseason surgery.
Yeah, definitely wasn't the best news, but at the same time, I think it is good that we already saw Drew Tranquill fill in for him previously when he missed a few games, right? So I do think you have the comfort level there of knowing you have a veteran that has the experience to take over. And the main thing is, which it is for every single Chiefs season, is playoff football in January, and he will be ready for then. It looks like he better come back probably a few games before the playoffs, which would be good to kind of get his feet back wet, get into a rhythm, so he's not just thrown into the fire of playoff football. So while it sucks, I do think the Chiefs are still in a good spot to survive without him.
And I thought Justin Watson was the Chiefs' best wide receiver, or most consistent wide receiver, maybe the one that Patrick Mahomes showed the most trust in early in the season before he suffered an elbow injury in the win over the Minnesota Vikings. Was it the Minnesota Vikings? No, that was the next game.
No, he got hurt in the Vikings game.
Was it Vikings or Broncos? I think it might have been Broncos.
Was it? But he played the Vikings game because he made that catch, that crazy catch.
But we talked after the Vikings game, so it could have been.
Okay. That's right.
Anyway, the report after he got hurt was dislocated elbow, maybe, and then Andy Reid kind of came back and said, no, it's just kind of an elbow contusion, bruise, and kind of maybe shed light on the initial prognosis of him missing a lot of time. We got a big part or a big answer on that part here on Wednesday. He's a limited participant in practice, Mark, after just missing last week's game. I think if he were to come back and play this Sunday after just missing the 1 week, huge win for Kansas City's wide receiver room and offers that steadying presence, that trusting presence for Patrick Mahomes. This is perfect timing with the Mecole Hardman move as well. Things starting to come together and the chemistry starting to come together for KC.
Yeah, this news shocked me. I thought this would be an injury that kind of lingered throughout the season a little bit. I thought he would miss a few weeks, and it kind of makes me wonder, is it a little push to play for him? Because, you got Mecole Hardman there. Rice is starting to get familiar. And you're Justin Watson. You're a guy that you're never too comfortable in the NFL, right? You're on a short-term deal. You're always wondering about that next contract. So I wonder there's a little bit of that in this, because this seems a little early to me. I'm a little surprised by this. Actually, I'm very surprised by this.
Well, it could be a situation also. I did see my buddy Harold tweeted out the practice video from today. They practice inside as we're getting just drenched and rained on here in Kansas City. Some much needed rain. So the Chiefs go inside on Wednesday.
Oh man, I forgot what rain looks like, man.
If you were to come home, Everett, and maybe you would see the seasons, the leaves change. Maybe you finally put a jacket on.
Bro, I was just there about a month ago. Stop playing with me.
He had one of these, like, how Gronk used to have those big, like, elbow braces, and like, he had one of those on there. So I could see him being limited all 3 days this week. This is just a guess. This is not me reporting anything. Please don't aggregate me. But I could see him being limited all 3 days this week, going into the game with a questionable tag and being a game time decision. And
he should not play this week. It's not worth it. It's the Broncos. And then you got the Dolphins after this one, right?
Broncos, Dolphins, bye.
That's the game you need. And then you got the bye right after that. So sit out this week. They don't need you for the Broncos game. Play in the Germany game against the Dolphins. That's the big one. Then you get the bye to even rest up a little bit more after that. I think that makes the most logical sense.
Well, we will be monitoring Justin Watson's practice habits this week ahead of Chiefs and Broncos Sunday in Denver. We also are, I believe, 1 week away. I know. The NFL's trade deadline is October 31st at 3 p.m. Central Time.
Halloween.
We were like 23 and a half hours. Like we started right at the 24-hour mark of the NFL's trade deadline. I put down Frank Clark here, and there's actually been some news on the Frank Clark front. You sent this in the group message. Frank Clark is signing a 1-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks after taking a visit sometime this week. He's going to do the physical and officially sign to their 53-man roster. So we know Frank Clark services are already taken care of. He will not be a Kansas City Chief. I think Chris Jones spoke to some media members in the locker room today and said he wishes the best for him, wanted it to work out, but understands that this is a business and sometimes things happen. So you can react to that, Mark Gunnels, or you can answer this question. Will the Kansas City Chiefs make another move ahead of the NFL trade deadline on Halloween this year?
Am I allowed to answer both? Is that an option?
Sure, go ahead. I'll just sit back and chill.
Yeah, you just sit back and relax with your Tiger outfit on.
Kick my feet up.
Yeah. All right, so let's address Frank Clark to begin with. Yeah, I did think he was going to come back. You know, it would have been a good feel-good story. But let's be honest. I think most of the Chiefs Kingdom really wanted him back just for that, for the feels and the vibes, and for the post-game interview with Aaron Ladd on the field after another AFC Championship victory. That's what we really, really wanted him back for, because it's not necessarily a need, especially now you got Charles Omenihu in the fold. So, yeah, you can never have too much depth on the D-line, but they're fine. I think that's what Brett Veach probably even told Frank Clark while he was in Kansas City. I'm pretty sure they had a pretty honest conversation, because if Brett Veach wanted Frank Clark back, he would be back. So I believe that there was no offer on the table for Frank Clark. That's what I think. And I think that's why he even left in the first place and went to Denver. So, and then like I said, after seeing Omenihu, I think that really kind of closed the door on bringing Frank Clark back. And, you know, we kind of felt like Frank Clark is ours, but you know what? He actually started his career in Seattle. I know you need to forget that sometimes. That's actually where he started his NFL career, people. And we got him in a trade. I know it seems like a long time ago. So he's actually going back to his original home. And that's a playoff team. So he will still have a chance to break the all-time sack record in the playoffs, because Seattle's going to make the playoffs this year.
Let me chime in here quickly before we get you on the trade deadline. KC actually did acquire some defensive line help earlier this week. It was an old friend and also a Super Bowl champ, and Mike Pennell pointed out in the chat by Damian. That's accurate. Mike Pennell signed a practice squad deal with the Chiefs, currently wearing number 69, and I did see him in practice today, courtesy our friend Matt Derrick, who follows the team very closely. So Mike Pennell comes back on a practice squad deal. And Mark, just maybe that's why Frank Clark isn't a Chief, because he wanted. I noticed something that was very specific that was pointed out. You got to look at the phrasing of some of these reports that come out from insiders, right? The specific phrasing that came out with the Frank Clark deal with Seattle is he signed it a 53-man roster. He ain't doing no practice squad deal. He ain't doing no wait and see. He is signing to the 53-man roster. I always thought that if Frank Clark came to Kansas City and it worked out, it would be through the practice squad. Maybe that's why it happened that way. I don't know for sure, but I did think that was interesting and how that was pointed out through some of the leaks and the reports and the phrasing that we got today when that deal was announced. Now, specific to the trade deadline, do you see any deals happening, or was Mecole Hardman the move for KC as we're just 1 week away?
Yeah, that was probably the move. I was so close to itching back on the D-Hop train, though. But with Justin Watson coming back way earlier than I expected, I think that kind of closes the door there. Because think about it.
You need help, dog. You really need help.
Think about it, though. And I wasn't going to be on this at all, but it kind of made sense. If Justin Watson's injury was lingering, Richie James, who knows when he's coming back? And now with the Justin Ross thing, we don't know how it's going to play out. You could have been down potentially 3 receivers. So if that would have played out, then I think you would have kicked the tires on a D-Hop potential trade, because the Titans are having a fire sale. I mean, they just got rid of Kevin Byard, all-pro safety, to the freaking Eagles. The rich get richer in Philadelphia. Derrick Henry's name has been floating around. D-Hop's name has been floating around. I mean,
Hunter Renfrow, I think, is another name I saw today.
Yeah, you got him, maybe Devontae Adams potentially if the Raiders eat some of that dead money there. I mean, you got some Hollywood Brown from the Cardinals. I think he's definitely going to get traded somewhere. I think that's almost pretty much a lock. I feel real confident he's getting traded. I don't know where, but maybe Buffalo. I hate to say it, but I think Buffalo may need a little extra juice there on the wide receiver too. But yeah, I don't think the Chiefs make a big move at all.
Well, speaking of fire sale, let's get to our Chiefs preview.
Stop it. Stop it. You can't do this. You can't escape. You can't make these plays. You can't make these throws.
Come on, give us a sneak preview.
Chiefs preview.
The Chiefs are preparing to play the Denver Broncos for second time in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Hate when this happens. So weird.
Yeah.
It'll be the 7-1 Kansas City Chiefs facing off 6-1 Kansas City Chiefs facing off against.
I mean, you just know they're gonna win this week. That's all. That's all.
just pencil it in early. You know, given the streak, right? Is it 16 in a row now?
16 in a row.
Sweet 16 for Kansas City. We started this by saying fire sale. I don't know why Denver hasn't already started their fire sale. There's been rumors of, hey, Jerry Jeudy's out here. Hey, they might part ways with Russell Wilson at the end of the year. I heard somebody say, oh, by the way, you know, this new ownership is not completely sold on Sean Payton either if this whole thing doesn't look promising by the end of the season. Like, why hasn't Denver just said, you know what? This is not currently working what we're doing. Let's start over new.
Well, I think they want to have one chance of a last showcase. And what better team to have your last showcase against the defending Super Bowl champions, right? It's because the trade deadline is 2 days after this game. Or
yeah, but why would you risk anybody getting hurt? You know, like if I have a deal in place for Jerry Jeudy, like I'm not running Jerry Jeudy out there to get hurt against the Chiefs in a game we're not going to win.
It's a risk, but maybe you're thinking, hey, if we can kind of force feed him the ball, we can go up a round in the pick that we're asking for. Instead of a fourth, we can get a third. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, this team, I know some Bronco fans personally, they were upset that they won that game last week against the Packers by 1 point. I mean, because at this point, why are you winning games? Because you're just ruining your draft order. This team isn't going anywhere this year. They had their second win of the season. And I think there's even more reason why this game probably won't even be competitive because they got their second win out the way now. So now they're probably not going to win another game until another month or so. So, yeah.
This game has no juice anymore.
I mean, where do we even break down this matchup? Like, what angle do we take to make this sound interesting?
You know, this is what you do professionally, Mark Gunnels. Like, you make games that maybe necessarily don't have juice. Like, you know, you're supposed to give them some. You're supposed to talk up.
Looks like you don't have anything either, Aaron.
Talk
don't try to just put it on me. But you know what? I can't make this game interesting. I can make it interesting. Here we go.
Ahead. Yeah,
you want it right now? What kind of meals is Russell Wilson going to cook this week?
Oh,
is it going to be a 5-star meal that you get from your favorite steakhouse, or is it going to be some ramen noodles? You back in Colombia in your dorm room, wondering what you're going to do with your life.
You know, the talk before the first time these two teams matched up was like, "Hey, Russell Wilson, like." Hasn't been terrible this year. That was kind of the talk. Like he had high touchdown numbers. The numbers looked fine, but he wasn't playing winning ball. And I still haven't changed my mind about that. Like their offense does not scare me whatsoever. It was almost, I mean, I don't want to say constipated, but it was tough for them to score. Cortland Sutton had to make an outstanding catch for them to even get the touchdown at the end. What you got?
No, here we go. Because you challenged my my producing skills. I ain't like that. So here we go. I got how I can make this game interesting from a Chiefs angle. Could this be? I'm just being a contrarian here. Is this a look ahead spot? You play the Dolphins the week after in Germany. Mind you're traveling to a whole different country. So I mean, guys are probably already getting their bags ready for that trip before this game, thinking about that time zone difference. I'm not sure exactly how early they're getting there. Do you know information on that, by the way? Do we know that?
I do. Kansas City is actually traveling late. I believe they're going to get in on that Friday morning. That is what my belief is. There are teams that have done it different ways. To my understanding, KC is going to be the team that lands Friday morning.
And do we know about Miami's travel plans?
I don't know about Miami's travel plans.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting angle here because you beat this team 16 straight times. You just beat them 2 weeks ago. That game was never in doubt. They did just come off a win, back-to-back home games. They're staying in Denver. You're traveling to Denver. Then after this, shortly you're traveling to Germany against probably your most hyped game of the season, going against Tyreek Hill, the revenge game, everything that comes with that. Could it be an overlooked game potentially, where it's closer than we think?
Always. I always think division games are close, and that was my justification for picking the Denver Broncos to end the streak this year. I was like, you know what? It's about time. KC's going to sleepwalk into one of these games eventually. They're going to have their mind somewhere else. They're going to be focused on Taylor Swift, or they're going to be focused on Germany and what they're going to be doing in Frankfurt and the beer and the brats. And I don't see it, Mark Gunnels. I see more history coming up for Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who is possibly going to set another record with a win over Denver on Sunday. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes is already 12-0 in games he started against Denver, seeking to do something quarterback has never done before, and that's go 13-0. No quarterback in league history has ever started 13-0 against a single opponent. We're starting to get to the point with Mahomes stats now that it's just like we're numb. We don't even feel it. We don't even recognize what this guy is doing week after week.
And while we're here, this wasn't in our rundown. I should have told you to add it. Did you see Travis Kelce talking about Mahomes chasing the GOAT and potentially being the GOAT? Did you see that?
Where was that on New Heights?
Yeah, I believe. Well, no, he was interviewing with somebody else. I forgot the publication. I apologize on that. And then even Tom Brady spoke on it, and he was talking about how, he can't really see it because he's done it for so long. But if there is one guy that he has his eye on, it is Patrick Mahomes. And, if he gets his third ring this year at 28, and right now he's the favorite for MVP, which is crazy because we don't feel like Mahomes actually played that well this year. But that's because his standard is so high, but he's still the favorite right now to win MVP. So as of right now, the Chiefs are Super Bowl favorites. Mahomes is favored to win MVP. And obviously he wins Super Bowl. He's probably going to win Super Bowl MVP as well, which would be his third. I mean, I know it's going to be hard to get the 7, but does he have to get 7 to be the GOAT? I don't think he does, Aaron, because this is why I say that. It's kind of like, in a way, the Jordan Bill Russell thing to me, even though Brady did play kind of in the same era as Mahomes, even though he was obviously way before, but I think it's the style of play from Mahomes that can kind of put him over the top. Because even though Bill Russell has 11 rings, Jordan had that flair and flash. Like, we've never seen this before. Dunking from the free throw line, doing reverses and stuff like that. So I think when you combine that with the winning, I think that's where Mahomes can have the edge, where he doesn't have to get 7 rings. If he gets 4 or 5, I think you can call him the GOAT.
I have no interest.
I know you don't like these conversations, Aaron. I know you don't like these.
A GOAT debate, really?
But I mean, we have to discuss it though. Where he's the guy that has a chance to challenge it.
Let's go to Vegas, man.
Aaron's gonna dodge the topic.
Place your bets.
Oh, there it is. There it is. 2 touchdowns. Win by at least 2.
Let's go to Vegas with Mark.
Look at Aaron ducking hot topics, man.
I know where you're not the GOAT.
Wow.
Yeah, I know one man who's not the GOAT. And that's I
didn't have a bad week though.
You had a fine week. I mean, this is probably your best week.
No, I had a couple 2-1s. Don't do that. I had a couple 2-1 weeks. I think this is my first tie I've ever had though. Like,
first push ever. This is the first push I remember marking down. Didn't have any last year, but you did last week. Let's recap the picks from last week. Kansas City did win over the Broncos, but Mark Gunnels missed when he picked, they did win over the Chargers, but he missed when he picked Chris Jones to finish over a half a sack. This was Chris Jones's first game without a sack all season. That was the only miss for Mark Gunnels. He hit on the under for Keenan Allen's receiving yards. The line was at 77.5. I believe Keenan Allen finished with 55 receiving yards. And the famous push that we've been talking about, which has you just waited and gotten a better number.
Bruh, I saw it at 48.5 too. That's the worst part about it, bro.
He took 48.
God.
Yeah, we're not going by what you see. We're going by what you say on these microphones right here on Chiefs.
But to be honest, I should be grateful for the push because the first half looked like it was gonna go way over.
So you took 48. It was 48 exactly. So Mark goes 1-1-1 last week for a season total of 8-12-1. You're right in it. I mean, this is money time. You're treading water a little bit. You had a bad week there, kind of in the middle, but you've recovered. All it takes is 1 3-0 week to set you right back up. Will it be a trick or a treat for Mark Gunnels as we're in Vegas here on Chiefs Coast to Coast Arrowhead Pride? Episode 61. Mark Gunnels, what are your plays this week?
All right, so I got 3 for you like I always do. I'm starting off with Chiefs first half spread. I got it at -4.5. I think the Chiefs jump on them early. I can see them being up by at least a touchdown at halftime. I mean, this Broncos team almost went scoreless in the first meeting. They got benefited by a bad roughing the passer call, got a garbage touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, got 8 points. But this is a bad offense. I don't think against this defense, especially with Omenihu now, they're going to have much going. So I love the Chiefs to at least be up by 5 or more at halftime. And I got Russell Wilson under on passing touchdowns at 1.5. If he does get a touchdown, it's going to be 1. There's no way he's throwing 2 passing touchdowns in this game. That would mean they score 14 points, and I don't see that happening. Like I mentioned before, they barely scored in the first meeting. And then my last play, I'm going with Pacheco, anytime touchdown at 0.5. I think he gets back in the end zone, whether it's a rushing or receiving. These are combined into 1. He just has to get in the end zone. So I like that a lot. I could see a scenario where they're near the goal line and they just hand it off to him, or even in the passing game. We saw that too, right? Take a little screen and run it in the end zone as well. So you give me both those options for him just to get 1 touchdown either way, I'm going to take it. So those are my 3 plays. Chiefs first half -4.5. Russell Wilson under on passing touchdowns at 1.5. And Pacheco anytime touchdown.
I like the plays this week. If I have to give my Ladd lock or my Ladd seal of approval, Pacheco anytime touchdown feels like the winner here. KC loves to target and get their running backs involved in the goal line area. Jerick McKinnon had a touchdown, a long touchdown last week that was called back on a penalty. I still think the process is there for Kansas City. They still like to target and get their running backs involved in that area. They had success in the first meeting against Denver, and I expect the same thing when they match up in Denver this Sunday. Let me do one more scroll through the chat here before we get out of here. Talked about the sporting game tonight, looking ahead to Halloween.
Thank you, Gary. He thinks I'm going 3 out of 3 this week.
Gary's lying to you.
Oh, wow.
No, we actually had a voicemail. Serta was right. We actually had a voicemail this week. Let's start with the voicemail.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what's cracking? This is your boy Reggie from Anaheim, California. My question or my comment more or less is, would it not be feasible for Andy Reid to begin incorporating the old school Oklahoma veer triple option where you'd have Pacheco, Clyde, and probably Blake Bell lined up in that V formation and be able to run the triple option out of that? It would give Andy the opportunity to run a lot of misdirection stuff while at the same time being able to leverage gaps and the defensive linemen in ways that they haven't probably seen ever, because most of them have never probably played against a veer option or an old school 3 yards in a cloud of dust formation. So that's my question. Would that not serve better for our short yardage woes? Once again, this is Reggie from Anaheim. Go Chiefs.
Let me get the first crack at this one. First and foremost, thank you, Reggie, for Anaheim for chiming in and giving us your question.
Can I take credit for that view? Because he's out here in California. There's no way that wasn't from my influence in being in LA. I brought him to Coast to Coast. So shout to California, man.
Reggie from Anaheim, who has nothing to do with Mark Gunnels. Yeah, sure. You can take credit for bringing him in because y'all both live in the biggest state in the country. Yeah, sure. I think that he is on. I think that he's on the right track with KC's short yardage game. Like, it's gonna look weird. Like the Kelsey touchdown. I don't know what the hell that was. Like the shovel underneath to kind of misdirect, half tush push. Like they're going to do a lot of weird stuff in short yardage. And it is frustrating for some fans. For me, I just want to see them run their normal offense. I don't want to see them fake field goal in short yardage situations. I don't want to see Blake Bell under center in short yardage situations. Like I want to see 15 run a quarterback sneak, or I want to see them try and get Rashee Rice on a one-on-one, or like run the same play that Tyreek Hill ran in the short yardage situation against what was that, Cleveland, against Chad Henne, like, and Gary's in California as well. Like it's I think it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be a work in progress. I don't think we're gonna get a traditional I formation run up the gut. I don't think you're gonna get a quarterback sneak, even though the Patrick Mahomes has said that he's lobbied for it in the past. Like, I think this Oklahoma formation and try and do some triple option off tackle stuff, like that's not that far off. Like they're going to try and do something that has a lot of eye candy that people have not seen before, that makes the defense stop and think for just 1 second and makes them freeze up enough to where the space to get the first down comes open. How they create that space is in the mind of Andy Reid and the lab and the creativity that they have at the practice facility.
Look at Aaron with the hard-hitting analysis, the all 22 nuts and bolts. I love it, Aaron. People question, does he know? Does he have that? Does he know what this formation is? No, I'm just playing. But you know what's funny about this? And hey, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm not gaslighting. Andy Reid may listen to this and call this play. I mean, he drove a play that a janitor drew up for him. Remember that story, Aaron?
I heard that
janitor.
Story, yeah.
So why wouldn't he listen to Coast to Coast? Listen to my guy out here in Anaheim. You never know, Andy. You just never know. You never know. So I'm all for it.
Who did we had such a big listener base in California on the West Coast? Chiefs Kingdom truly is. Yo, he is not a kid from Kansas City. His Kansas City card is revoked. Appreciate y'all rocking with us here on Chiefs Coast to Coast. Next week.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Just had some.
Go ahead. You the host. Go ahead.
Some breaking news. Adam Schefter just tweeted that Tyreek missed practice today due to a hip injury. Something to monitor. Just something to monitor.
That is nothing to monitor.
Not practicing for a hip injury? Hip injuries can be tricky. That's all I'm saying.
On a Wednesday, Mark Gunnels.
I'm just saying. I'm just delivering the news. That's all I'm doing. All right, go ahead. You're the host.
Nah, you send us out of here.
Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Coast to Coast with me and Aaron Ladd. We'll be back next Wednesday to review this beatdown of the Denver Broncos. And we're going to preview probably the game of the year, right? The Miami Dolphins in Germany. Tyreek Hill versus the Chiefs next week. Should be a fun one. Until then, see you guys next week. We out.